Here's the trap with automation. A job can be perfectly scheduled and still be useless. Every cron run starts a fresh agent session, so this chat doesn't come along for the ride. This request is the kind people write while the context is still in their head. Do that every weekday morning. I'll let the project analyze it exactly as written. The result is an honest stop. There's no task target, no source file, no output path, and no delivery boundary. A scheduler can't safely guess any of that. Right here, the automation brief supplies the missing contract, this local queue is the source, this markdown file is the destination, and the run stays inside the project. Now I'm building a self-contained prompt from that contract. Notice the order. I'm fixing the unit of work before I create any scheduled job. The generated prompt carries its own workspace, exact input, exact output, ordering rule, tool boundary, and final marker. Nothing depends on the sentence above it. That absolute work directory matters. Without a work directory, cron starts detached from the repo. With one, project instructions can be loaded deliberately instead of being assumed. Okay, here's the test that counts. I'm opening a new session, so the builder conversation is no longer available. I'm sending only the generated prompt. This new session gets the task contract, not our earlier explanation. The fresh session runs the exact local command and writes the queue brief. The result comes from explicit paths in the prompt, not from a hidden follow-up. The brief is short on purpose. 3 queued items sorted by priority with no network lookup and no message delivery. Now I'm running the package verifier. It checks the vague request rejection, the self-contained fields, the fresh session receipt, the brief, and the empty external action record. Everything passes. The marker is visible, and the receipt points back to the same prompt hash and exact workspace. I'm opening cron now just to connect this mental model to the desktop surface. No job exists here yet. That's deliberate. Next, the prompt, schedule, model, tools, and delivery setting become one reviewable job. So remember the order. Define the task, make the prompt self-contained, prove it in a fresh session, then schedule it. Automation should remove repetition, not clarity. A scheduled job starts as an ordinary request. The difference is that Hermes must turn our words into durable settings it can run later. Right here, I give it a fixed name, a weekday schedule, a project folder, a local delivery boundary, and the exact task prompt. Notice the schedule phrase. I say every weekday at 9, while the saved form is 0, 9 star star 1 through 5. That's the scheduler's unambiguous version. The work directory matters too. It lets each fresh run find the queue through a relative path and load this project's rules without borrowing context from today's chat. I also say local only and do not trigger it. So we're authorizing a saved schedule, not an immediate run and not an external message. Now I submit the request. Hermes uses the cron tool to create the job, then reads the stored jobs back before it answers. That readback is easy to miss, but it's important. A confident sentence isn't proof. The saved name, frequency, folder, delivery target, and next run are here. The confirmation is concrete. Weekday queue brief is enabled. Its next run is Monday morning, and Hermes describes it as saved and scheduled. Let's open the cron view. One job appears with a scheduled badge rather than a running state. On screen, frequency is the normalized weekday expression. Next is Monday at 9, and deliver to says this desktop, which is Hermes' local destination. Look at the prompt box. It contains the complete task and its safety limits, while run history still says no runs yet. So the safe pattern is simple. Name the job, normalize the schedule, bound the work and delivery, then verify the stored state. We'll add skills and model policy next. This job already knows what to do and when to do it. What it does not have yet is an explicit runtime policy. The prompt, weekday schedule, and next run all stay untouched. We are only deciding which instructions and model the future session should use and where its result may go. From the job menu, Edit Cron opens the settings that apply on the next run. Delivery is this desktop. That is the bounded option here. The result stays in Hermes instead of being pushed to a connected chat. The model is still inherited from the global default. I will pin HDVEF course balanced, so a later profile change cannot silently change this job's model. Save changes updates the job, it does not trigger it. Notice that last is still empty, and the run history still says no runs yet. A model controls execution behavior. A skill is different. It carries reusable instructions. Our queue briefing skill defines the heading, ranking rule, required fields, and the no-sin safety boundary. In a fresh session, I ask Hermes to attach only that skill. The request explicitly forbids changes to the prompt, schedule, model, delivery, or working directory. Hermes lists the job, updates the returned ID, and lists it again. That read after write pattern makes accidental changes visible before any scheduled run. That's the reusable instruction layer. Queue briefing. All three cron calls are complete, and the confirmation explicitly says the original time schedule was retained. Next, we'll verify model and delivery in the native view. Back. In scheduled jobs, the native detail view confirms the pin model, this desktop, the same next run, and no runs yet. The job is now explicit and reviewable. Task prompt, reusable skill, fixed model, bounded delivery. We change configuration only. Lesson 11.4 is where runs and logs begin. This is the same weekday queue brief job we configured in the previous lessons. The schedule, local delivery, balanced model, and empty run history are our clean baseline. Run history is empty, so every result we see belongs to this test. For a useful recovery exercise, I have armed a transparent local test fixture. It affects only this lab's model route, returns a deliberate 503, and cannot send or change anything outside this machine. I'll select trigger now once. Hermes confirms the manual trigger immediately, but the job still waits for the background scheduler to collect it. That distinction matters when you're watching a real run. While it is queued, notice that Hermes keeps the original weekday schedule. A manual trigger requests an extra run. It does not replace the next recurring time. The scheduler will create a dedicated cron session, load the attached queue briefing skill, and call the pinned model. Our local route remains unavailable through every bounded retry, so this run must settle as a genuine failure rather than accidentally recovering on the second request. I am leaving the wait visible because production jobs are asynchronous, and diagnosis starts by separating accepted, running, and completed states. Now the last time has updated, run history contains one entry, and the red status names the actual cause, HTTP 503 from the intentional local route outage. That is evidence, not a guess. The run history row is clickable. Opening it gives us the exact cron session that attempted this job. The session preserved the scheduled prompt and the attached skill context, even though no final brief was produced. For deeper evidence, I open logs and jump to the newest records. Here are the three bounded attempts: the 503 response, the job ID in the cron session name, and the scheduler traceback. The useful pattern is to read the specific error, confirm which job and model route produced it, and avoid changing unrelated settings. Before repairing the condition, I return to cron and pause the job. Pause is a safety boundary. The definition stays intact, but the recurring schedule cannot start another run while we are diagnosing it. I have now cleared the local outage fixture backstage. Nothing in the job changed. With the route healthy again, Resume re-enables the same prompt, skill, model, delivery target, and weekday schedule. Now I select trigger now exactly once more. This is a controlled retest of the unchanged job, not repeated clicking and not a new schedule. Hermes accepts the second manual trigger. The scheduler is running the same workflow again. This time the model route is available, so the skill can read the synthetic daily queue and build the requested markdown. I am still watching the last field and run history rather than assuming the toast means success. The trigger toast proves only that the request was accepted. The completed job state and its session output are the proof that the work actually finished. During this wait, I am not clicking trigger again. Duplicate manual runs can produce overlapping work and make the history harder to interpret. One request, one settled result, and one evidence check is the safer rhythm. Also notice that we repaired the failing dependency, not the job definition. Keeping the prompt and schedule unchanged makes this retest a clean comparison with the failed attempt. On a longer automation, this is where you would watch resource usage or downstream receipts. Here, the bounded queue brief finishes locally, so the next visible change should be a second history row. There it is. Last has advanced, the error is gone, and run history now shows two separate entries, the failed attempt and the successful retest. The original Monday through Friday next run is still scheduled. Opening the newest run gives us the real result. Hermes loaded queue briefing, read dailyqueue.json, and produced a reviewable table with Q104, Q105, and Q106, including owners, due dates, blockers, and next actions. The review boundary remains explicit and nothing was sent externally. That is the complete recovery loop. Trigger once, wait for a settled state, read the error, inspect the run and logs, pause before repair, resume only after the condition is healthy, then trigger one controlled retest and verify its output, with the schedule still intact. We already have a weekday automation with two successful runs. The schedule is healthy, but now the request has changed. Somebody wants an owner escalation. That is exactly where a useful automation can quietly become a risky one. Here, I open the existing job instead of creating a second schedule. We need to preserve one distinction. A scheduled instruction may prepare work, but it should not inherit authority to send, publish, or approve it. First, I am renaming it to Weekday Escalation Draft. The name is deliberately honest. This job produces a reviewable draft. It does not pretend that a draft and an approved external action are the same thing. The new prompt reads the request and an explicit idempotency contract. It must create or reuse one local draft, never send or approve anything, report whether it created or skipped the draft, and end by preserving the human approval boundary. After saving the weekday schedule, local delivery, working directory, provider, model, enabled state, and previous run history are all still intact. We changed only the behavior that needed to become safer. We have not run the job yet. Now I'm starting a fresh Hermes session for one narrow change. This is a practical least privilege pattern. Make the large visible edit in the cron form. Then ask the agent to update only the one field that the form does not expose here. The instruction allows exactly one cron tool call and supplies only the skill list. It explicitly forbids changing the prompt, schedule, runtime, delivery, or any other optional field, and it forbids triggering the job. That makes the intended mutation easy to audit. The response should return the stored skill and stop there. Hermes reports the stored idempotent action drafting skill and nothing else. That is the narrow response I asked for. Now I can return to cron, inspect the run history, and only then choose whether to test execution. Back in cron, I will trigger one controlled run. The skill reads the request and contract, derives a deterministic key from the snapshot and action type, and delegates the right to a local helper with no network or messaging capability. During this first run, the automation is allowed to create only two local artifacts, a pending review draft and an idempotency receipt. If the job ever asks for approval inside the scheduled context, Hermes is configured to deny it rather than silently broadening authority. While this first run is active, think about the failure we are preventing. A scheduler can retry after a timeout, a restart, or an uncertain response. If the underlying action simply writes or sends again, the same logical request can produce two side effects even though the schedule itself is perfectly healthy. Here, the key is derived from two stable business fields, the queue snapshot and the action type. That is stronger than using the current time or a random identifier because every retry of the same logical request reaches the same key while a genuinely new snapshot produces a different one. That identity survives uncertainty. The receipt is the durable memory of the action boundary. It records the draft path, its cryptographic hash, and the pending human review state. The automation can therefore prove what it prepared without treating preparation as delivery. An empty external actions list makes that boundary machine checkable, not merely a promise in text. The third history entry has completed successfully. I am opening that real cron session so we can inspect the result that Hermes actually stored, rather than trusting a success badge by itself. Here is the first result. Draft created, followed by the deterministic key, the local draft path, and it's SHA-256. The final line is equally important. No messages were sent and human approval is still required. Now I'm returning to the same job and triggering the identical request again. This is the failure mode idempotency is designed for. A retry after an uncertain result must not create a second escalation or overwrite the evidence from the first run. The helper recomputes the same key, finds the existing receipt, verifies the recorded draft, and exits without writing another copy. The schedule can retry safely because duplicate prevention lives in the action design, not in somebody remembering whether they clicked run. On this second run, nothing about the request has changed. That is intentional. A good retry test repeats the same input, working directory, schedule policy, and action type. If any of those are silently changed, a new output would not prove that duplicate prevention works for the original request. That sameness is the test. In production, repeat the request verbatim and preserve every identity field. The helper is now following the opposite branch. It computes the key before writing, looks for the existing receipt, and then verifies that the recorded draft still exists with the recorded SHA. Only after that integrity check can it report a safe skip instead of overwriting evidence or creating another draft. Idempotency and authorization solve different problems. The receipt prevents a duplicate local draft. The approval boundary prevents that draft from becoming an external message. We need both. An idempotent sender can still send something unauthorized once, while a human-gated workflow can still create duplicate drafts without a stable key. The fourth history entry is complete. Its real session reports skipped Auriful paired with the same key, the same path, and the same SHA. The second run produced evidence of a skip instead of a duplicate side effect. That is the full design. Draft-only authority, deterministic keys, durable receipts, local delivery, a safe retry, and a human approval boundary that survives every run. Reliable automation is not just scheduled code. It is constrained, observable, and deliberately repeatable.